would be more qualified to speak on this matter than myself. But we know that an informed decision is always the best decision. That's why we afforded him to you today. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, good evening.
Yes,
my
sir.
name is Matt Gray. I'm the Virginia State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. The Major gave me quite a promotion just now, which I appreciate. I answered some questions that you all had when this ordinance was first considered back in the spring, as you'll remember. My organization, we're okay with an extension of the amount of time that's necessary for someone to make other arrangements for the animals that they've been keeping as pets or for where they're living. We really firmly oppose any exemptions for certain types of primates. It's our position and our belief, which we really think is strongly supported by science, that primates, regardless of their size, shouldn't be kept in individuals' homes. There are public safety and public health dangers that they can pose. I don't know the details of this specific case or these specific animals, so I can only speak to what we know of these animals, generally speaking, that they're not safe to keep in homes as pets, that they can transmit diseases, that they can pose a real public safety risk regardless of their size. I know that the Animal Control shared quite a bit of information with you, cases that we have researched both across Virginia and the nation where these animals have posed a public safety risk. We can also make an argument that I think is quite important as to what is the humane treatment of these animals and how they should live their lives. As you know, primates are sort of a few steps away from us. They're very intelligent creatures that require a great deal of mental and physical stimulation that a lot of folks simply believe can't be given to them in a home. We also know that the American Veterinary Medical Association and the Virginia Veterinary Medical Association share our position that primates shouldn't be kept in homes as pets. Having said all that, I'm much more of an expert on the policy of this than I am the biology of these animals, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions, Mr. Chairman, that you all might have.
I guess one question that I would have, in localities that have been faced with these circumstances, can you tell me any localities that would allow these primates to be kept in a private home situation?
Virginia, unfortunately, despite my very best efforts, doesn't have, of course, a statewide ban on primates as pets, so that's a real issue. So we have local ordinances like yours, which we think are very important. Unfortunately, it's created this environment in which someone can pick up and move from one county to the next if they need to, which is why we think it's really important that localities like Caroline have these ordinances. Having said that, Mr. Chairman, the ordinances look slightly different everywhere that you go. What is rather uniform about them is that they exempt, or rather that they do not exempt primates of any kind. There are lots of other animals, creatures that are considered exotics that are or are not included in other ordinances. I don't know of other Virginia ordinances, counties or cities, that have any exemptions for primates.
So you don't know of any place that a person could go and keep these animals in their home?
Mr. Chairman, I think you misunderstand. There are lots of counties and cities in Virginia that do not have local ordinances.
Okay, so they don't have an ordinance. So
that's right. Spotsylvania, to my best of my knowledge, doesn't have a prohibition on exotic animals as pets, but other localities do, like Caroline, have these ordinances. It's a bit of a mismatch all over the state. Did I answer your question clearly, Mr. Chairman? You can move next door to the other county and keep whatever primates you have. And then you might not be able to move to yet another county because they have a local ordinance prohibiting them.
Okay. Mr. Underwood.
Yeah, Mr. Gray, just speaking about the primates that Ms. Hayes has, survivability in terms of moving them. So let's say we have the ordinance that you can't keep the primates here, then what is there a solution that you, as part of the Humane Society, would be willing to offer up a solution?
Again, I don't really know the specifics of this incident and these primates. There are sanctuaries. There are some sanctuaries in Virginia that accept primates. My organization happens to own several quite large sanctuaries in other states that accept exotic animals that work their way through the pet trade or roadside zoos and end up in our facilities. So I can't make a commitment to you here on the public record, but it's certainly something we'd be happy to try and help with.
Right. Yeah, I'm not asking you to relocate. I'm just I was thinking about knowing that she says that they could not survive in a group environment. I think that's what Ms. Hayes represented to us. And so I'm just wondering what alternatives are out there.
I think for most people who are forced to give up their pets, their primates, they end up in a sanctuary. They all operate quite differently. There are some of those that are here in Virginia. Most of them aren't. That's probably the most logical option for someone.
Okay. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Other board members?
I don't have a question of Mr. Gray, so I do have a question of Mrs. Hayes. You've indicated, Ms. Hayes, that to me, with our telephone conversations, that the oldest primate you have is 17 years old?
17 years old, yes.
And the youngest is about a year and a half or so?
Correct.
Okay. How long have you lived in Caroline County?
Since December 1993.
93. And the primates came in, the oldest one came into the county?
Well, when I first moved here, I owned a rhesus monkey, and then after that, my next one was in 2000. She's 15 years old.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I guess my thought process, and I certainly have heard Major Mosier said, and certainly what Mr. Gray has said as well about these primates. And I had a discussion with Ms. Hefner just during our break, and I understand the concern that these people have. I understand your concern, Mrs. Dr. Hayes.
I appreciate that.
These are they've become family. They've become your your personal attachments, and we all have attachments. And I just don't know whether it would not serve this board, and I don't think the board is ready to make a decision as to whether we amend this ordinance or not that we have in place. But I do believe we need to give Ms. Dr. Hayes some type of feeling that she doesn't have to worry about on the 30th of the month that she's going to have to give up these primates and send them off to wherever. She's indicated to me over our telephone conversations that she is diligently trying to find someone else, someplace else. But you got to understand, this lady has a home. She's been here since '93, and it's not easy to get up and just move from this situation. I would certainly hope the board would consider, and I know it's not what staff recommended, and I know it's what Major Mosier would not want to have happen, but I would like to see us to pass the emergency ordinance. It's only good for 60 days. And then at the same time, we put a provision in the emergency ordinance option 1 that would give up to 60 days in order to give the individual a means in order of moving or placing the primates in some other place. That would give her, give Dr. Hayes, 120 days. It would give her 4 months or 5 months, something along those lines, in order to find another place. I don't believe
it's going to be hard for me to find somewhere else to move because I will have to quit my job.
Yeah.
Because I'm not giving up on primates, so I'm basically going to have to move and try to find me another 10 acres so my goats can go along with me, along with my primates.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It's not going to be an easy task for Dr. Hayes to give her primates up. It's not going to be an easy task for her to be able to or have to move in order to be able to keep her primates. And she said she's keeping her primates no matter what happens and what this board decides. But I would hope that the board would have compassion, for Dr. Hayes in the standpoint that it would at least allow her to understand that she doesn't have to worry about it for the next maybe 120 days or so as to her primates being taken away from her or that she's having to move. And in the interim, I think you need to probably be, I'm not sure what the board will do with it after that, to be quite honest. But you probably need to continue to look for some place
Yep.
to move to. And I hate to
trying
see you
to
give
do
up the
that.
government job. I mean,
I'm going to have to leave my job
Yeah.
because basically I'm getting the impression I'm going to have to leave the state of Virginia.
Right. Well,
So-
and I hope that you're not getting that message from us.
Now, I'm not getting the message from you, but I'm just getting the impression from other people that staying in Caroline County, staying in Virginia is not going to be a good thing for me. So I hate to have to leave my government job of 24 years and start all over.
I would hate to see you do that as
Yeah,
well.
my boss would too. I've had this talk with him.
Yeah.
So,
But again, I don't know that, and the board may. The board may, after the next 60 days, decide, hey, we are going to amend this emergency ordinance.
well, I hope
I don't know. You'd
I
have
hope
to-
they do because my vet told me that, if I had to give up my 15 and 17-year-old monkey, that they probably would die. Because right now, my 17-year-old, since he's out in the garage, because he was living in the house, I had my two oldest monkeys in the house. Now that he's in the garage, he's not eating very well, so I have to syringe feed him 3 times a day to keep enough food in him to maintain his body weight. And hopefully he adjusts to being out there and start back eating. So,
Other board members?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of concerns. My first concern is, and I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, we did tell a lady that did have different monkeys that she had to get rid of them within, 30 days, 60 days? So I do have that concern. The second thing is there someone from animal control here? Could I get you to come up, please? I know you had given us pictures. My concern is, can you just describe the pictures? Are you the one that took the pictures, ma'am?
Deputy Carty took the pictures. I was with her that day, but she was actually the
Can
one
you
who was taking them.
describe the conditions?
The conditions inside the home where the pictures were taken, the cages that were seen were not cleaned at the time. There was a lot of urine and feces in the cages. There were several more out in the garage that were in the same condition, and when we spoke with Mrs. Hayes, she did admit that she only cleaned the cages once a week. The actual condition of the home, Mr. Whiteman may be able to talk about that a little bit more, but our concern was basically with how the animals were being housed and the conditions that they were living in.
So that was a major concern, is actual...
Yes, actually, by law, we could have seized every animal that she had on the premises that day. But in an effort to spare the county the expense, and animal control does not handle primates, has never had to handle primates, we really didn't know what to do with them. She had an alternative there with a garage that was heated and air-conditioned, relatively new building. We asked her to move all the animals out into clean cages, into the garage, and clean up her act and not have them in the house where she was having some other issues with construction. The floor was caving in.
Thank you. I guess my question is this: if you were to, because you guys deal with basically cats, dogs, so forth,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So if you were to come across a dwelling with, I guess, in the same situation with dogs and cats and living in this type of condition, what would be your protocol?
In the same circumstance, if there was an alternative where they could actually be placed someplace else like the garage, we're always thinking about the well-being of the animal versus, the expense, because whenever we take anything in on a seizure, we have to take it to the animal hospital and have it vetted. So that opened up a whole different situation with the primates, because you have to have a special vet for that. You just can't take them to Caroline Animal Hospital to have them checked out like you can a dog or a cat. So each situation varies. In that same situation, she actually had several dogs there on the premises that we would have seized as well. And we asked her to get them to the vet, within a time frame and to get their cages clean, and she did that. We went back a week later, and she had taken the dogs to the vet and updated their vaccines.
So as far as the primates are concerned, if this was legal in Caroline and you came across a situation...
We'd have to seize them.
you'd have to seize the primates, and then from there, you'd have to find them a special vet.
Primates are held in the same category under the code as a companion animal. So there has to be adequate food, adequate water, adequate shelter that's properly cleaned.
And then you would have to find a special vet, I
Yes.
mean, to take them to.
Yes.
And how many, just out of curiosity, where is the,
Fredericksburg is probably the closest place that would have one. We have nothing here in the county.
and when you have a cat and dog situation, you take them?
Take them to Carolina Animal Hospital.
Take them to Carolina Animal Hospital. Mr. Whiteman, can you speak to me on the board on the conditions that you witnessed?
Yes, sir. I got the animal controls report and the photographs, and I went by and visited Mrs. Hayes, and I can speak for the dwellings because that's all my jurisdiction. Went inside. Her house has deteriorated somewhat. She had originally in the picture some holes in the floor, but when I visited, they were covered with 3/4-inch plywood, which we normally use for subfloor underlayment. I talked to Mrs. Hayes, and she has a contractor who built her garage where the animals were moved to, and her and the contractor were in discussions about, do we save this old dwelling or do we maybe build something new? So I explained to her that by the building code, I couldn't condemn a structure unless there was an imminent threat to her safety, and from what I've seen in the structure, there was no imminent threat. She's lived here since '93. It's deteriorated. There's deterioration to any house. This may be a little more excessive than most, but she did take the remedial action of getting the holes covered with the plywood, and I directed her to have her contractor call me, and we could discuss what the minimal repairs that I thought would be needed for a private residence. Again, this is not a rental unit that's covered by the code in the ordinance that we passed tonight. This is a private home. We don't go into private homes and tell people what to do unless there's an imminent threat to life safety. I didn't find an imminent threat, but I did discuss with her contractor the minimal things that I thought that needed to be done, or as I was. He called me, I called him back, left a message. We have not talked about the things, but we're back and forth. We're playing phone tag. So there are some repairs I'm recommending that she take and have him abate so that it is safe for her and the animals in the structure.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteman, I appreciate it.
Other board members? I guess my concern is when this first came before the board, it was my thought that we were looking at trying to do some type of extension so Dr. Hayes would have time to relocate. But then in discussion and talking about the issue, somehow we ended up talking about an emergency ordinance. As far as, I've heard words tonight like compassion. I do have compassion. And everybody who comes in here, I have compassion for, and I want to do what I can do to assist them in any way that I can. I think that's what elected officials do. But the concern that I have in this issue is I'm afraid that we will be opening the door to other issues. My vote has nothing to do with Dr. Hayes. I've heard Dr. Hayes speak, and I believe what she says. And I'm not sure that her animals are a threat. But I'm afraid if we pass this ordinance, we may be inviting other persons whose situations may not be the same. And to be honest with you, that's the concern I have. I will certainly support an extension to give her an opportunity to find a place, but I don't want to place animal control and the citizens of this county in a situation that very well may be dangerous. Not because of Dr. Hayes, but for whoever may come behind her. So that's my take. The decision is up to the board.
Mr. Chairman, and I certainly heard what you said about compassion. I did mention the word compassion, and I still feel that's important. But also, all I'm basically asking is that we do pass the emergency ordinance. Now, Dr. Hayes has been here with her primates since 1993. Now, I don't believe you'll convince me, no matter what you may say, and how elaborate you may say it, but you'll not convince me that the next 60 days is going to make a difference, that these primates are going to become so dangerous until the people of Caroline County are going to be in danger. I'm sorry, it's just not, I don't believe it's something that's going to happen. And all I'm asking is the fact that we allow Dr. Hayes the ability, we provide for her the ability to have up to 120 days is what you're doing. Because if we put into this ordinance, this emergency ordinance, a 60-day, you get 60 days for the emergency ordinance, then they would have 60 days. If the ordinance is not this is only good for 60 days. A board at that time in 60 days is going to have to approve an ordinance that either adopts what is in the emergency ordinance or does not adopt what's in the emergency ordinance. And so it does give her some time to find a place to move. She's indicated to the board that, and I believe her, from the standpoint that she has tried to find some place to move, but she's not been able to at this point. I'm just asking that we give her the time. If you want to change it to 120 days, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I would like to give her more than 60 days, or 45 days is what the ordinance has said, that we give her more than 45 days in order to find a place to move where she may be able to live with the primates that she wants to live with. That's just the way. Option 2 doesn't give her extension. Option 2 gives her just the extension. It gives her extension for 45 days.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
That's all right.
That's cool.
I'm mistaken. My feeling is that after hearing and getting all the information, I can certainly see that. I don't think we need to change the ordinance. I think we need to look at an extension, giving her an opportunity to, and I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, I agree with you, Mr. Akers. I think we can show compassion, yet we can enforce the ordinance as we passed. And that is by giving an extension without doing anything to the ordinance, but certainly asking Ms. Hayes to be diligent in her effort to meet the move for the animals within the allotted time period. I think we can have both. I think that's the best of both worlds. But I do not want to change the ordinance.
Option 2, is that an emergency ordinance or is just an amendment to the ordinance? That's an emergency ordinance as well. Can we, would the board be in agreement to extend the period? Because I think now she has a total of maybe 75 days. 75 days. So can we extend that to give her a little bit longer?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I thought the original ordinance said that an extension could be granted by the board.
No.
Wasn't that, we took that out?
It was never in it.
Oh, I thought we
The-
talked about that.
The
Okay.
second option changes the original 30-day period to a 45-day period and gives the board the option to grant an additional 30 days upon request of the applicant or animal owner. And of course those, and that's all it changes, and it does that in even though the whole paragraph is reprinted in the emergency ordinance for you to see the context. The only thing that really changes is the number of days to notice and that additional 30-day period. So if you came to it, if that's what you wanted to do, but you wanted to give, you wanted to change it to some other period of time, you could easily do that.
So what you're saying is if we wanted to, if the board agreed to give her a total of 120 days, if that's what the board agrees to. You're saying that we would be in power to do that?
You could put the 120-day period into the emergency ordinance and adopt that, yes, sir. The only procedural issue with doing that is that it expires in 60 days, which is before the 120 days is up, unless you re-adopt it after a public hearing as a regular ordinance, not as an emergency ordinance. Does that make sense?
No.
Yeah, it does to me, but didn't we have the option to have a follow-up emergency ordinance? They're only good for 60 days. So November 24th, I got one that's good till January 24th.
And then redo it?
And theoretically, I could do the same thing in January 24th? Theoretically, because life would be different.
Probably in theory. I think I'd only do it in 60-day increments if you're going to do that, because the 120-day, it just doesn't match up.
Okay, so you're saying we could do 60 days,
Yeah, it's only good for 60 days.
and then if the
emergency
board
ordinance.
at that point wanted to
Do another
do
60
another one,
days.
that would be up to the board at that time. That seems to be the best option that we have right
Well, you
now.
have another option, is you could make that, we could adopt that at the December meeting, which would give a little more time by delaying it now.
But she's got to have it gone by the 30th of November.
Yeah, she's got to be gone by the 30th of November.
Who said that?
That's what the original,
I think that's just based on the original time
Yeah.
frame and when the notice came out.
so,
Will the sheriff give her 8 days?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What was the question?
Would
Can we say max?
your office give her 8 additional days?
We shouldn't ask him to do that.
Major, I think he's asking if you would not enforce
Yeah.
the ordinance. The current order requires her to have the animals gone by the end of November. If she doesn't, then the animal control officer can seize them. And I think the question is would the sheriff's office agree or be willing to not do that until the board meets again on December the 8th?
I think the position of the sheriff's office and Sheriff Lippa is that, we want to work with this board, and whatever your decision is, we will definitely abide by that decision, and we certainly have no objection to any type of extension, and that's one of the things that was met with the staff, that we could definitely give this woman some more time, but it needs to be, we need to be all involved as a team effort to make the, appropriate decision. So.
I guess the only thing that concerns me is what position does that put law enforcement in? If,
Forget I asked a question.
Okay.
That's the position puts him in.
Now, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
it seems like we're going to get into a position, and in all fairness, Dr. Hayes has been here for 23 years.
Yeah.
Or 22 years. Had it not been for somebody tipping over an alarm or something, nobody would have known they were here. But the reality is, whether we like it or not, we do have an ordinance. And, it's much like the speeding ordinance we have that people don't seem to like. If we want to be as compassionate as possible within our realm, we have no choice than to do a 60-day extension now and try in January to do another 60 days if that would give her time. I heard her, and I was actually very quiet during this whole discussion because I feel bad for somebody who says they have to give up their home and give up their job.
I do too.
And that really means a lot, but I'm willing to work with Dr. Hayes any possible way we can. And I always dance on the edge of the ledge, so any kind of way we can, I'll work with it.
It seems as though 60 days is what we're going to be able to do.
I just got one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
During that 60-day time frame, is law enforcement being able to check in on the condition? Because these conditions are deplorable. I mean, look at them pictures. These are deplorable. So we talk about compassion. I understand that, but these conditions, that does not, I would not have a dog or cat in that situation.
Okay,
So-
but based on what, just a minute, based on